a talk on ideas for increasing our defenses, our daily defense, sorry. And what I would like to do right now is housekeeping details is please mute yourself when the talk starts. And if you know you're going to be moving around, you want to get some water, get some snacks, do it now while I'm talking. And or please do stop video. In most computers, it's in the bottom screen. In iPads, it's on the top of your screen. So in case you lose connection, you could always sign back in again. The other thing is this will be recorded. So it will be available like all our other talks on our own website, highrichhouse.org. So I would like to introduce Kate Dearborn. Many of you know her because she has served the movement in many, many different capacities. She worked in circulation, marketing, and radio at the Christian Science Publishing Society. Her last service at the Mother Church was as director of radio, with that nice voice, including the news programs Monitor Radio and the World Service of the Christian Science Monitor. Kate also served as executive director of Latino USA, a public radio program distributed by NPR, which I was really pleased to know about because I'm a Spanish speaker. Currently, Kate is serving as first reader at the Christian Science Society in Saugatuck, Michigan, and serves on the board of Noontide, the visiting Christian Science Nurse Service of Michigan. I sat with Kate at a group. We were thrown in a group exercise, and I just fell in love with her, and we hit it off. And I said, could you give a talk for High Ridge House? So I'm very excited to welcome Kate, and as I know you will also, so please let's give her a round of applause. Just do this. And without much further ado, welcome Kate. Thank you. We will then, at the end of her talk, we will unmute people, or you can unmute yourself, and we'll have time for conversation.
Well, thank you, Maravik. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate being included in the metaphysical talks, and I love the subject, and I really felt like I wanted to share this. First of all, I love Christian Science nursing. I love Christian Science nurses and nursing facilities. You know, you all are the ones that hold everybody's arms up like Aaron did for Moses in Exodus, where he helped allow them win the battle. Or Aaron helped Moses win the battle. And what allows us to win battles? Well, it's being fully armed and fully equipped. As Mrs. Eddy says, how many are there ready to suffer for a righteous cause, to stand a long siege, take the front rank, face the foe, and be in the battle every day? Christian Science nurses, administrators, all staff, you all are right now in the battle every day because of this claim of pandemic. And there are many challenges none of us thought we'd have to meet in terms of isolation, distancing, staffing, patients not allowed visitors, as well as all the additional regulations. How grateful we can be in the Christian Science field for your selfless work and dedication. This all means that we need to be even more awake, more aware, and close to our Father, Mother. For those of you Christian Science nurses and staff working longer hours, doing more, living out of facility or close by, those of you living and working or schooling from home, trying to get so many things done, kids off to school or onto Zoom for school, getting the shopping done, getting ready for a meeting. How can we make our days better? Is it to get the clothes laid out the night before, set out the breakfast things, make lunches so when you get up, you can get a quick shower and get to work? Getting all this set up frees you up a bit, doesn't it? You're more organized. Plus, with JSH Online, you can listen to the lesson in the car or when you take a walk or ride your Peloton. That's enough preparation for the day, isn't it? Well, not according to Mary Baker Eddy, the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, and what she required of one of her workers. I'm going to stop for just a minute and say I have given Gabby a document which has got quotes and other things. And so at some point, I think when we've got a full complement of people, They'll send you all in the chat, I believe, a copy of the document. So you'll have these quotes, and otherwise I think we'll make it available at the end. So if there's something you want in terms of the quotes that I share, they'll be available. Anyway, so in Boston, during the early times of the Christian Science Church, Judge Hanna was first reader of the Mother Church and editor of the Christian Science Journal, and he was a Christian Science practitioner. Any one of these is a full-time commitment. All this meant he had a lot of responsibility for carrying out important and visible work daily, plus, of course, his healing work. He was exhausted and he asked Mrs. Eddy for a break. She told him no. Instead, he was to take 4 hours of prayer for himself daily, uninterrupted by household issues before he did anything else. This was added to his schedule. Can you imagine what he thought? Besides being willing to be obedient to Mrs. Eddy, that is. And he was obedient. Lo and behold, things started to go much smoother. And he found all things work together for God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Well, Mrs. Eddy, not too long after, allowed him to take that break that he asked for. You know, this is a good point. You may feel like you're already working 10, 12, 14 hours a day between work and family obligations. When are you going to find how to carve out 3 or 4 more hours? Well, I've found that when I do this prayerful work for myself with no household interruptions, it's astounding how all else just falls into place. We need time with God. It's like fuel in your car. You maintain your car, you wash it, you keep it clean. But if there's no fuel in it, you might be sitting pretty, but you won't be going anywhere. We've got to fuel up daily. Mrs. Eddy told James Neal, pray daily, never miss praying. Spending that time listening to God, focusing on the source of our life, honoring and worshiping our Father, Mother, that's our fuel. When we get to understanding of God right, we are so familiar with that relationship that even in the darkest, toughest times, we know we can trust God, hear our shepherd's voice, and we'll know what to do. You know, Mrs. Eddy insisted that Christian Scientists defend themselves on a daily basis, and I suspect most of you know this. It was important enough, though, that she put it in the manual of the church. It wasn't just a suggestion. She put it in the church manual. And as Christian Scientists, we're obedient. In fact, here's what she says about Christian Scientists being law-abiding and what it does for us. Experience has taught me that the rules of Christian Science can be far more thoroughly and readily acquired by regularly settled and systematic workers than by unsettled and spasmodic efforts. Genuine Christian Scientists are, or should be, the most systematic and law-abiding people on the earth because their religion demands implicit adherence to fixed rules in the ordinary demonstration thereof. So doing that daily defense work on a regular basis is being obedient, settled, and systematic. So here's what she says in the manual under the heading Discipline. It shall be the duty of every member of this church to defend himself daily against aggressive mental suggestion and not be made to forget nor to neglect his duty to God, his leader, or mankind, and to mankind. So what would be the aggressive mental suggestion that she's talking about here? Wouldn't it be anything that would distract you from thought from your own individual mission and knowledge that you can hear God? Anything that claims we're separated from our good? How do we get that direction from God? Well, we listen. We know if it's God. Love wouldn't say during this belief of pandemic, I'm so tired of praying about this, or my neighbor, friend, family member is so wrong about, and then fill in the blanks. Or I'm too tired, too stressed, or too busy to pray. I have so many other things to get done. To defend ourselves is to be so familiar with God's voice that we're not distracted or caught off guard. That's why the time with God before your day starts is so valuable. By the way, I've got a friend who does her defensive work at night. So the timing is up to you and God. I learned how to listen to God during a time when I was incredibly busy. My dad had passed on, and my mom had just moved in with us. I was homeschooling our daughter. My husband was traveling a lot overseas. I was very involved in church work. You probably know when you're a parent and homeschooling, you're it. And I think about all the people who are homeschooling right now, and I'm so grateful for the experience I had. And I know it's really challenging. You're the chief teacher, chief cook, chief transportation, chief of all things. My husband got up at 6. My daughter woke not too long after. And my mom was struggling with kind of a new kind of a life. And everybody and everything needed my attention. I was never by myself. And I had no time to be alone with God. And boy, I felt it. I really felt adrift. I attended church. I was involved with committees. I got in the Bible lesson. I prayed for myself, but I didn't feel grounded or satisfied. And I remember that story of Judge Hannah. And I thought, well, an hour less sleep won't hurt me. So I started waking up an hour early just to pray. It wasn't enough. I just finally get settled and my husband was up. So I tried 2 hours and that was much better, but I still felt kind of rushed. So I began getting up at 3 a.m. and now I had the peace I was looking for. Things started to align. I could listen. I got a better sense of direction. Things that seemed to be a bother or a hassle just started to drop away. I've had some friends say to me, sleep, when do you sleep? Aren't you tired? Well, it was an issue for a while. I had to figure that part out. It was tempting to run around all day going, I'm so tired. I'm so tired I didn't get any sleep. Well, then I caught myself doing that. And I thought, I can be tired or I can have a healing of that. And I really did watch myself. So my objection was, no, you can't convince me that worshiping God can carry penalties. At the end of the day, when I started doing that, I started realizing I was less tired. If your motive is to worship God, it's always going to work out. By a few weeks' time, a schedule formed that allowed me to sleep when I needed to. With the extra time spent with God, I really didn't notice needing to get a certain number of hours of sleep anymore. I just got what I needed. So should you get up 2 hours earlier than anybody else gets up? Well, that's between you and God. But I know it really does work for me and I still do it. So we've talked about our duty to defend ourselves from aggressive mental suggestion in general and setting up time to do our prayer and defensive thought. But what about the other part of the manual provision? And not to be made to forget nor neglect your duty to God, to leader or mankind. So what would be a daily duty to God? And everybody's going to have a different one. I really have over time really tried to figure this out, and there's not one basic answer, but one of them is from Mrs. Eddy. She says, this text in the book of Ecclesiastes conveys the Christian Science thought, especially when the word duty, which is not in the original, is omitted. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And I think really when we take the word duty out, it gives us a better perspective because it's natural. In other words, she says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Love God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man in his image and likeness. It is really the whole of us when we start honoring God. So I like to spend time on those commandments in Exodus 20, and I highly recommend the Beatitudes in Matthew 5 as well. So what might be a daily duty in terms of our leader? And we know we're not to worship Mrs. Eddy. She'd be appalled if anybody wanted to worship her. But she said, follow your leader only so far as she follows Christ. Part of our duty to our leader might be to be certain to make use of what she provided and taught. Follow her explanations by living the best life we can as Christian Scientists and spiritually feeding ourselves, including making time to go to church. Right now, we can attend church via Zoom, just like we're visiting via Zoom right now. Besides being obedient, what does going to church or Zooming to church do for us? Well, since nobody takes attendance, it's not really about keeping a seat warm or saying we did it. The most important thing is that I find that church feeds me, even if I've really studied the Bible lesson all week. You know, we all need that fuel. Those of you who are administrators and supervising Christian Science nurses, be certain that you get yourself to church, as well as make time for your staff to go and gain from that structure of truth and love. Help yourself. Make sure that you find everybody a window to get a refreshing drink of that cold water in Christ's name. Now, what about our duty to mankind? As Christians, don't we want to continue to understand that all mankind is our neighbor? One cardinal point of Christian Science is that man is unified to God, always, as it says in Genesis 1. If all mankind is image, as in a mirror, we're not separated from one another or God.
Pull your thing up.
Isn't that just what Jesus did? He saw man as blessed, as never separated, even when someone was behaving that way. Jesus saw through the lie and this healed, and healing mankind is really what we're all about. I've got a few practical tools I want to share. You know, if you plan on setting aside time daily to be with God more than what you're doing now, be prepared for a pushback from what Paul called the carnal mind. This might sound silly, all the stuff that I'm going to tell you, but you know, the carnal mind is a distractor and doesn't want us to have that sense of peace. I found setting up a place without distractions and with what I might need is vital. And, you know, if I'm going around looking for a pen or my pencil lead broke, pretty soon an hour's gone by and I've found myself folding laundry. You know, you get the picture of why Mrs. Eddy said not for Judge Hannah not to have those household interruptions. You know, it's easy to think that we've got too much to do to pray, but I promise you it is a big payoff. My favorite tool is the composition book. Target sells them for about $1. And when they're on sale, I pick up about 5 and I never run out. That's another point. I make sure I don't run out of what I need. If I write with pens, I've got 4 of them nearby. So I'm not scouting if my pen ran out. So right there where I do my work for myself, I've got a Bible, a Science and Health, any other writings by Mrs. Eddy, Bible concordances or concordances to Mrs. Eddy's writings. I also have a dictionary called the Student's Reference Dictionary, based on the Webster's of 1828. This one was available during Mrs. Eddy's time. So it's accurate in terms of what the words meant in her era. And I have some 3M Post-it flags. I do these. And what they do is I can make myself a note. So, but I also write in the books. I make notes to myself. I make historical notes, notes of inspiration, reminders to compare pages, etc. I found years later that these notes have been inspiring and helpful. I've also been known to take an old words only hymnal and tear the pages out and put them in my pocket if there's a hymn that I need to have with me. You know, Mrs. Eddy wrote in her Science and Health, and there were lots of notes in the back, including a note that her maid Adelaide Still wrote part of, and then Mrs. Eddy wrote the rest of it. And I'm going to read it to you because it's really dear, but to me, it's an example of something she wrote to herself. It wasn't in her published writings, but it was something she wanted to remember. She said, "Whenever there seems to be a need or lack in your experience, this simply indicates the scientific fact that this seeming need is already supplied by God's precious abundance. Then give thanks with your whole heart, because you have learned in Christian Science that God's supply is on hand." And again, that was something that she wrote in the back of her own Science and Health. Now, mind you, Mrs. Eddy and her early followers didn't have all the dictionaries, concordances, and things like that, but I'm not suggesting that you have to invest in a bunch of books. Having your Science and Health and Bible right there is enough. While I'm working for myself, I find I get less distracted if I don't have my phone, iPad, or computer to write or look up passages or words in the dictionary. I really like having the books. That's for me. With the books, I'm more able to dig and not trail off in some rabbit hole and watch kitten and puppy videos. So I do my best to be quiet and sit listening. You know, not everybody's like this, but my way of listening is I actually will sit and handwrite what I feel like God is telling me. And as I write, I try to really listen and get a much clearer sense of God's presence. I started this journey of doing daily work for myself after taking class instruction in Christian Science. And all of you Christian Scientists know that that's available to you. But if you haven't explored that, boy, I would just love to really encourage you to think about it and pray about it. Any ideas I've shared with you or will share with you really don't replace a Christian Science teacher's ideas, but you know, they're helpful. And honestly, Christian Science class instruction and going to that yearly Christian Science Association meeting is a wonderful avenue for defending yourself spiritually and feeding yourself. Sue is asking, will the talk be available? And yes, it will be. It's being recorded and it'll be available later. As most of you know, there are many places where Mrs. Eddy mentions the word day or daily, and there are at least 20. One time I had a list of all 20, and it was just more than I could handle. There is a standard list of 7, which I've got included in the handouts. And I'm gonna read a little bit of them. The first one, rule for motives and acts. Well, the first 4 are in the manual. Rule for motives and acts, which is read the first Sunday of every month, so I'm not going to read it now. The daily prayer, which many of us have memorized, but I'm going to just briefly give you. Thy kingdom come, let the reign of divine truth, life, and love be established in me and rule out of me all sin. And may thy word enrich the affections of all mankind and govern them. And I won't read this next one, alertness to duty, because I'm going to go over it later. But again, that's in the manual. And then this is in the manual. This is so sweet. Gratitude and love should abide in every heart each day of all the years. And then watch and pray daily that evil suggestions in whatever guise take no root in your thought nor bear fruit. Ofttimes examine yourselves and see if there be found anywhere a deterrent of truth and love, and hold fast that which is good. The Webster's of 1828 says deterrent means to discourage or stop by fear. I always thought that was just, you know, to deter me, to just stop me. But this, you know, nothing can make us afraid to hold fast to that which is good. And then take notice, this is a notice that is mentioned a couple times by Mrs. Eddy. Once in miscellany, she says, Christian Scientists pay attention to this. And then in Science and Health on the bottom of page 442, she says, Christian Scientists, be a law to yourselves that mental malpractice cannot harm you either when asleep or when awake. And I find when Mrs. Eddy says something more than one time, the identical thing, she wants you to pay attention to it. And then the last one is, she says, and this is in miscellaneous writings, one thing I have greatly desired and again earnestly request, namely, that Christian Scientists here and elsewhere pray daily for themselves, not verbally, nor on bended knee, but mentally, meekly, and importunately. And, you know, I always thought importunately was just, you know, just genuinely. It means persistence to the point of annoyance. It's not that we're going to be annoying God, but that we are so persistent that it's really on the level of not being willing to let down. So I take a few minutes first and go over all of these. And, you know, we've got to choose to be inspired by these things. I don't do it as a checklist. When I go over them, I really try and pray with every single one of these. You know, if Mrs. Eddy saw these as important enough to ask us to do them daily, I think they're tools. They're there to inspire. And I really do try to be thoughtful when I go over them. I also have a few things that I'm always reading. I have a one-year Bible, and this one is a women's one-year Bible. The only thing, it's got some pink type in it, and it's got a pink flower on the front. This is a New Living Translation, and I've got one other one. And the thing that I like about these is over a period of a year, I read the whole Bible if I pay attention every day. And there's some really sweet things in here, including some notes. And I want to read you this one note because it just really jumped out at me. It's about, it's in Matthew 14. It's about when Jesus was walking on the water. And they quote him. And this is, like I said, this is the New Living Translation. And it's when they had a storm. So Jesus was walking on the water, and he spoke to the disciples because they were afraid and thought they saw a ghost. And he says, in this particular translation, don't be afraid, take courage, I am here. Well, the Greek says, and because this is in the lesson this week, I really wanted to share it. The Greek says, or the I am is here. So don't be afraid, the I am is here. So there's lots of really wonderful notes in here. So again, that one is the New Living Translation. I've got the New International Version. They're by the Tyndale Press, and they're under $20 US. But there's also a free version online, and I'm in one of the handouts I give how to get to that free version. But the cool thing about the free version is that you can find the translation you want to read. And there are a bunch of different languages. So I also try to be in a constant read of Science and Health, and at least one of Mrs. Eddy's other writings, as well as the Bible lesson. And I might spend more time on one or the other, depending on what is meeting my need that day. But the more familiar I am with the Bible and Science and Health and Mrs. Eddy's other writings, the more they're at my mental fingertips. And then I wanted to tell you some resources that you may want to look at and investing in eventually. And most of you have got the Bible, Science and Health, and the manual, the quarterly Bible lesson subscription, which you probably know about. If you're a student of Christian Science, you'll want a copy of Prose Works if you don't have one, which include all of Mrs. Eddy's published writings other than Science and Health and the manual. All of her writings can be purchased at the reading room or online at christianscience.com. And many of them you can get on your tablet or on a Kindle. And also one of my dearest friends is the Christian Science Sentinel. I was the one as a kid who brought in the mail, and I loved getting the Sentinel every week. And it's still full of wonderful articles and ideas. And it's a great weekly meal to use to learn to watch and defend ourselves. So if you don't subscribe to the Sentinel, the Journal and the Herald and the Christian Science Monitor, do that for yourself. And don't not subscribe out of fear and lack of funds. Love will provide some way, and including it might be going to the reading room or maybe even share a subscription with somebody. When I first started really studying Christian Science, I found the hardback concordances of Mrs. Eddy's writings and the Strong's exhaustive concordance really helpful. And on page 3 of the handout, and again, I don't know if it's been sent out yet, but you can get a free version of those online. Strong's is online at BibleStudyTools.com. The Webster's of 1828 is at Webster's Dictionary 1828.com. And that one-year Bible I was telling you about is on oneyearbibleonline.com. And again, those are free. And then I'm going to make a pitch for the new Concord subscription. I would love to encourage you all to, if you find you like computers, the Concord is really, really helpful, the new Concordance Online, and JSH Online. And JSH Online has so much, it's almost embarrassing to tell you, but the current journal, Sentinel and Herald, archives of each of those from the beginning, audio from Sentinel Watch, audio programs from the Publishing Society early on. It also includes Concord Light, which allows you to search Science and Health in the Bible. It has the Bible lessons, Bible lens research, and the audio of the Bible lesson. And they recently just added biographies of Mrs. Eddy to read, to listen to, and to search. And that includes Mary Baker Eddy Christian Healer, the expanded version, We Knew Mary Baker Eddy, volumes 1 and 2, and A World More Bright, The Life of Mary Baker Eddy. And I understand they're adding the 3 volumes of The Peel. I could be wrong, but I'm really hoping they do that. So I'm going to give you a little more detail now of how I pray. I loved an old talk by a Christian Science teacher about how she prayed for herself daily. And I kind of stole some of the subjects that need defending in my thought. And I keep a list because otherwise it's really tempting to kind of trail off and not really hit on some of those things that really need addressing. So I sit and I listen, and if I don't feel like I'm hearing, I listen more. I really love that statement in the Bible, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. And sometimes we've got to insist that we do hear God's voice. And then one of the first things I look at is that statement from Mrs. Eddy in Unity of Good, an acknowledgement of the perfection of the infinite unseen confers a power like nothing else can. And then Mrs. Eddy says to Calvin Hill, the first thing I do in the morning when I awake is to declare, I shall have no other mind before the divine mind, and become fully conscious of this and adhere to it throughout the day. And then the evil cannot touch me. And that's from volume 1 of the expanded We Knew Mary Baker Eddy. So my list is God, and then me, and then my identity. Christian Science heals. No one can be made to think otherwise. And I include myself in that. I address issues of body, age, day, mental discipline. And I'll just quickly go over mental discipline, right, physical activity, and sense of order, just because I know I need to address those physical issues that need addressing. And then having no particular dream and no particular personality. And I'm going to explain these, by the way. And then home and family, income and business, Christian Science organizations, church, and then the world. That first statement, acknowledgement of the perfection of the infinite and unseen confers a power nothing else can. When we absolutely know that the divine perfection is here, everywhere, and governs everything, what else do we need? With this as a basis, I don't as easily kind of get in the weeds and get caught up in examining error. And that other statement that Mrs. Eddy told Calvin Hill. The first thing I do in the morning when I awake is to declare, I shall have no other mind before divine mind, and become fully conscious of this and adhere to it throughout the day. Then the evil cannot touch me. And then he says, many times she also said this to me, all my hours are his. All my hours are his. Handing all of our hours to him the first thing in the morning. This is what we're doing when we're prayerfully defending ourselves. The first half of that statement goes right back to the first commandment, doesn't it? She tells us it was her favorite text. It demonstrates Christian Science, she says. It inculcates the triunity of God, mind. It signifies that man shall have no other spirit or mind but God, eternal good, and that all men shall have one mind. Another way to say this is, I won't have any other mind before the divine mind. As in, I will not put up with any other belief in any other mind. And I know that sounds a bit willful, but no, I'm believing only God is mind and not any other. So when I address the idea of God, that's my foundation for the day. I always go to God first. Looking in the Bible, we're told that God is love. We're told that he's our shepherd, the creator of the ends of the earth, and God's care for his creation is described in the Bible many ways. And then in Mrs. Eddy's writings, including Science and Health, she answers that question, what is God, on 465. And she mentions him in the glossary in a number of ways, creator, mind, I, ego, etc. The first 8 statements in the platform on page 330 of Science and Health are about God. So those are the places I look. And so I may not, I don't do anything by rote. I really try and find something that God gives me to listen to. Even sometimes I'll ask God, okay, which book do I pick up, and open it to that. So then when I feel like I've grasped God's hand, then I move on to me. I include in my identity the fact that I'm spiritual, thinking out from God, mind, and that I cannot to be made to think that I'm less than what God made. With each of these ideas on the list, I stop and then I listen to what I feel like God is telling me about me. So I've got on the list personality and identity. You know, one idea I really appreciated from Mrs. Eddy was the difference between spiritual identity and personality or personal sense. In a letter she wrote to a woman named Anne M. Otis, she said that it was extremely important to know that there is no personality. And what is the difference between personality and identity? Well, personality would be cherishing and living with traits in ourselves that differ from God. For instance, dislike of others. I really try not to ever use the word hate, but maybe, you know, hating a vegetable or hating, you know, something, anything, hating cold weather. Thinking we're never good at trigonometry or cell phones, or accepting inharmony of any kind in ourselves. Identity is being the image of God. That's in Genesis 1. Seen by God as good, and knowing that if God has made us in his image, then we can express him in ways that are specifically us, and guided and loved and approved of by him eternally. So, and then another area I really do make sure I address for me is that I cannot be made to believe that God's laws, known as the Holy Ghost, the Comforter, divine science, can ever stop operating. It would be like believing that gravity would stop operating, or that I could be made to think this. I also include others in my life, my family, my patients, anyone who is seeking that cup of cold water in Christ's name, knowing that nobody can be made to think that Christian Science or the laws of God don't heal. In terms of body, Mrs. Eddy tells us, the Christian Scientist takes the best care of his body when he leaves it most out of his thought, like the Apostle Paul, is willing rather to be absent from the body and present with the Lord. A wonderful illustration of this is a story of a practitioner who'd been around quite a while. A friend witnessed her saying into a mirror after she had washed her face and brushed her teeth and was getting ready to head out the door, "I've cleaned you, I've dressed you, and now I don't want to hear from you the rest of the day." We don't want to hear of the body's complaints or ideas in terms of what matter is saying. Put it in its place every day and be present with the Lord. In terms of age, it helps to be alert to what you accept as your normal human experience. It is not normal, for instance, if I were to wake up with aches and pains, although commercials tell us this, a lot of things tell us this. And daily, we've got to be a law to ourselves that we don't take in these things. At one point, I was getting out of my chair a lot and making ghastly noises, and I realized I was doing it, and I had to start saying no, which was shorthand for no, this is not of God, it's not good, it's not me. And I kept it up, and it was healed within a week. But it's that really being alert to those little things that want to say to us, we're material, and the body can tell us that we're material. If something creeps in, object. Mrs. Eddy tells us we've got divine ability and power to do this. I think this was in the lesson last week. Take possession of your body and govern its feeling and action. Rise in the strength of spirit to resist all that is unlike good. God has made man capable of this, and nothing can vitiate the ability and power divinely bestowed on man. So once I've identified myself, then I address my day, sometimes my week. I establish the fact that this is God's day that I'm in, and that all that needs to be accomplished will be. The definition of day in glossary of day in the glossary says, mind measures time according to the good that is unfolded. This unfolding is God's day, and there shall be no night there. You know, if you've got way too much to do, the definition of year also says something to the effect of, a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. Some friends in college at one point figured out mathematically that, and this is a joke, it's not really exact, but they figured out that a minute equals 3 months and 3 months equals a minute. So if you're with the Lord, and you've got only a minute to get 3 months worth of work done, you're with the Lord. It's going to get done. And if you need 3 months to pass as a minute, with the Lord is the operative thing. So knowing that you've got a load to come on this week, or, it's tax time and you're doing everybody's taxes, if you put your hand in God's, it's going to get done. And if we set that tone for our day, it's really helpful. So dreams, I dream about myself. We all accept things, and we know we accept things about ourselves that we need to be healed. And sometimes we put them off for way too long. Perhaps a physical problem or a dislike or a fear that we've just let hang around. I've got that on my list as dreams I regularly accept about myself. Well, it's an important area of defense. Most of us know we've got to handle this stuff. And sometimes it's kind of easy not to do it in the morning. It's not going to come up that day, or we just haven't been thinking about it. I put that on my list. And so otherwise things get my goat and I haven't handled it. Might blow up at a friend or my parent or a spouse or a neighbor. And so before this happens, take the time to address that stuff that's kind of floating around and that you need to. And if you do it in the morning, you get ahead of it. It's those little foxes that spoil the vine. So if we get ahead of these things, they don't sneak up on us. I try to know that I can't be made to be discouraged, shocked, afraid, jaded, distracted by mortal mind lies, or the things that I might be triggered by, as the current vernacular goes. That's an aggressive mental suggestion. And personality would agree, oh, I've got this Achilles heel. If I go back to that, I shall have no other mind before the divine mind. That handles it. It does, but then I've got to live it the rest of the day. And that's why going to God and knowing that we can adhere to that throughout the day is really helpful. That's why our preparation in the day is worth it. I ask God to help me turn to him and not believe those beliefs that I've been believing about me, and see them as beliefs about beliefs. And I've really seen both character and physical issues healed. And by the way, it's not about me being an expert on me so much as an expert on God. It's not ego so much as the story of the counterfeits. You all know that in banks, they teach people, the tellers, to examine the bills to the point of where they're really familiar with what's real and what the details are in the bills, so that when they run into something that's not a real bill, that's a counterfeit, they recognize it's not them. And that's how we recognize that it's not us, is be so familiar with God's man that you don't get fooled. Okay, home and family. With family, I embrace all the folks that are important in my life. I don't give specific Christian Science treatment for anyone not in my immediate family, but I do pray for my friends, family, and neighborhood in general. I pray specifically for those in my household, and yes, I pray for my pets every day. In Christian Science, in Science and Health, it says, God is the life or intelligence which forms and preserves the individuality and identity of animals as well as of men. It's wise to pray for your pets and get a sense of their spiritual individuality and identity. That way you won't get snuck up on, and you'll always be prepared to know that they're already spiritual. The groundwork will be already done. In terms of my home, this is going to sound silly. Wherever I live, it's right to put each element in my home under God's care. I go from my chimney to my basement, the entire outside, the landscape, the property lines, the ecosystem outside, the systems inside. Those include the electrical, the heating, the cooling system, the electronics and the internet, the useful appliances and vehicles, tools and things that mortal mind says, oh, these things can break down at any time. And all things I put under God's care. I expect no defects, no surprise appliance breakdowns. Mrs. Eddy says in Unity of Good, be allied to the deific power, and all that is good will aid your journey. Well, your home or your room and all in it are there to aid your journey. And I know we're getting close. Income and business. In terms of business and income, Mrs. Eddy, in that same letter to Ann M. Otis, says, know that nothing can come to you or go from you but what God sends, and therefore that no mortal mind can influence you, for only one mind exists, and this is immortal love. I'm knowing that all that is coming in and going out is from immortal love, the one mind. I've found that gratitude for every bit of progress and every element of good in my life goes a long way, as does mentally being willing and able to help mankind. You know, I also on a daily basis pray for my state, the citizens in my state, the Christian Scientists in my state, for Christian Science teachers, practitioners, nurses, prison ministries, our state COP, Christian Science camps, churches, societies and formal groups, and all the Christian Science nursing facilities in the US and the world, as well as any association I'm involved in. Sometimes it's just a swift hug, but during this claim of pandemic, I've made special effort to be clear that there is nothing but God present everywhere. And you know, I've also thought about that idea that know that nothing can come to you nor go from you but what God sends, as a real blessing in terms of our work as Christian Scientists. In terms of church, we get out of it what we put into it. This is an area where mentally being available is important. Traditionally, folks think that church is the members or the building, but you all know the definition of church. It's not about a building. And it's fascinating that Mrs. Eddy doesn't talk about a building in that definition. This pandemic has taught us a lot about the fact that buildings are not as important as prayer and being together in the different ways that we're being able to do that, just like right now on Zoom. So the last thing, the world. It's big. However, what I do is pray about areas of the world that I feel God is influencing me to pay attention to. For instance, Texas is important right now. And I lived in Taiwan for a short while, and that's another place I pray about. When things crop up in the news, I reach out to God to know how to pray for those places that are important to me. I have a friend who loves Mexico. We worked together many years ago, and he'd tell me he was up late in the night praying for Mexico. Well, it wasn't too long after that he would be praying, and he found his job transition, which allowed him to go to Latin America and Mexico. And he never stopped praying. And that showed in his, and it continues to show in his experience. Is there a part of the world that gets your attention? Perhaps a need for better environmental laws, or perhaps a region that you know that you love that needs healing? We've got the Christian Science Monitor to alert us to what's going on in the world. The world needs our prayers, and that's why we defend ourselves first. And we as Christian Scientists are needed in particular. We know how to pray. We know how to turn to God. And when the picture appears grim, we know because we've been listening to our Father's voice. We know He's in charge, and we know that we can turn to Him to guide our prayers and our days and our hours, because all of our hours are His. So that's all my prepared stuff. And let's see, there are 3 things in the chat. Okay. So I'm inviting Maravik back to tell us what to do next.
Wow, Kate. The words that came to me was treasure trove. So English not being my first language, I looked it up. Is a collection or store of valuable or delightful things. You just gave us a treasure trove of many, many things today. Thank you so much. There is much to absorb, even to listen to again. Just a reminder, this talk is being recorded, so it will be available on our website for sure by tomorrow, maybe later this evening. So we invite you to listen to it again. I know for sure I will be listening to it again, because you gave us so many ideas. You gave us so much, I think, call to action. I was like, I don't pray for the world all the time. I don't even pray for the Philippines where I'm from. Only when there's a big typhoon. So I thank you so much for all those wonderful ideas. And because of identity, I'm not going to feel like I'm not doing enough. So thank you for that reminder.
Good.
So we're going to
I'm
open
wondering
it
if
up.
Gabby-
You can unmute
Yeah.
yourself, and you're welcome to sing praises in the chat or say a few words of gratitude and questions also of Kate. And
Okay, and I have a question too, Mirvik, of Gabby or of you. I sent a document with all the quotes that I used.
because a lot of people can't really copy from chat, we've discovered this previously, we will put it on our website. So the
Right.
document, it will be easier. You can download it on our website too. We'll make it easier
Super.
for everybody.
Great.
So
Okay.
now it's open for our family conversation. We have people, I'm so happy. We have people from all corners of the globe right now. We're so pleased with this talk and the reception we've received. I want to thank you all for supporting High Ridge House with this monthly talks we've had. And our family keeps growing and growing. And because of you, those regulars, you just send them to your friends, and really it's our inspirational gift for healing and renewal for the world and for ourselves. So let me stop talking and just open it up. If you want to, just raise your hand or start talking.
Kate, Suzanne here. I just wanted
Hey,
to
Suzanne.
shout just a big thank you. I feel like I've taken a nice fresh bath that I needed. It was just so, it was like, yeah, oh, that's right. That's what my teacher would say. And oh, thank you for the wonderful reminder. I can't tell you what a blessing, what an incredible blessing. Everything I needed and then some. Thank you so much.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
So just thanks.
Good. Well, happy to. And that's some of the, well, all these quotes are in that document. So I hope you find it helpful, because, you know, doing this work for ourselves is really helpful. I also included another document with quotes when night seems to be a difficulty. So there's some sweet quotes about from Psalms and some other, I think Psalms and Isaiah, about praying about night.
Kate, I'm just going to read some things in here
Sure.
from the comments. From Marita Simmons, who's our church rep from Ridgefield, Connecticut's church. We are all going to be very busy and have all the time we need. A wonderful talk. Thank you, Kate. You gave my association a wonderful day at the Clem Collins Association.
Oh,
Okay,
wonderful. Nice to see your name, Maureen.
Yeah, Keenan Smith. Thanks, Kate. Long ago, you got me started practicing daily defenses. Today, you have greatly expanded my list and my thoughts. Gratefully, Keenan.
Oh, hi, Keenan.
And from one of our Christian Science nurses, Scott Higgins, thanks for the wonderful ideas and all your work to make this meeting possible. Okay.
Wonderful.
Linda DeMeo, thank you for such an all-encompassing call to action. So very glad I made the time to tune in. Barb Zanoni, thank you so much. It really hits home, and I can't wait to hear it over on the website. I'm going to take those ideas to heart and get up earlier tomorrow. I know, we all want to wake up early on Saturday.
Yeah.
I know, Kate, I was planning to really sleep in tomorrow, but not after your.
Sorry.
Okay, Kent has her hand up. Kent, you want to unmute?
Yeah, I wanted just to ask a question. I don't think I heard the word treatment in your talk, and I wondered if you could talk about the difference between finding a wonderful idea in the Bible or science and health. You're loving it, you're entertaining it, you're filling your thought with it. Is that enough, or do we always have to go on to give ourselves a sort of formal treatment? And by the way, Kate, I'm up the road from you in Grand Rapids.
Yes, I know. It's nice to see your face, my dear. You know, my sense of it is a treatment is a clear sense of truth. And I know that if I feel a rock solid sense that I've got this, The only additional thing I would say is make sure that I'm clear that there is nothing that's opposing me, and that, you know, he commanded and it stood fast, and nothing, you know, the gates of hell shall not prevail against God. And so to me, it's getting that, it's making sure that I kind of set the seal on that. But if I've got a really clear sense of peace, that's, to me, that's the treatment.
Great.
Thanks.
I see Kent nodding. Thank you. I just want to mention this because I think this is important. From Lee Woodward, what an inspirational talk at my association's talk this summer. The speaker reminded us to support Christian Science facilities prayerfully and financially. So Kate really really addressed all our nurses, and she mentioned all of you that are all working double time. We just know that in case a lot of people don't know about Christian Science nursing facilities, some of you don't, it's always good to remove the impositions on public thought, is that we're open 24/7. We provide those services. We're not an emergency center, but we do emerge and see God's perfection. And we're here available for you in the event that you might need us. So thank you for that, Lee.
I just wanted to say thank you for the reminder of Mrs. Eddy's simple but powerful affirmation of the first commandment, the first thing in the morning. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way to begin the day.
Thanks, Scott. I love that. I love that whole statement, but I also love that all my hours are his.
From Lauren P, huge thanks. Thank you, Kate, for the wonderful reminders and the steps. Grateful for your presence, thought, and work. I was nodding with joy throughout and setting my alarm even earlier.
Get those clocks out.
Exactly. Another one from a phone. Thank you. This was much needed and such a great reminder. I know I will be waking up earlier from now on. From one of our trustees, Marilyn Bradshaw, Vice President. Wonderful talk, Kate. I'm grateful for the shining example of your life experience.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And we have other trustees on our call also. Thank you for our board of trustees that's always praying and supporting our work. I think I got mostly all these thank yous and high praises. They're all in the chat. And are there any other questions that I may not be seeing? Because we have so many screens on this gallery. We had 11 screens that I was trying to make.
Oh, my word.
I've never had to do that. So just speak up if you have a comment or a question. Barbara is raising her hand. There's so many Barbaras. Go ahead, Barbara.
I wanted to know what is the site that I go to review all of this again.
Good. It's highridgehouse.org. It's who, if you got the invitation from us.
Yes.
The name, yeah. You just go to our website.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. And if you don't get our emails, you can sign up to be included. So you'll start getting invitations for our different events and activities. Okay. Anyone else?
Barbie, will you post the quotes that Kate is providing on your website?
Yeah, she sent us a handout, so we'll make it a downloadable handout so you could print it from your computer.
Perfect, thank you.
And if you want to be environmentally correct, you just copy it to your computer. She mentioned environments. I was like, okay, pray for the environment.
I know.
There's one more comment in chat. Oh, from Dave Daniels, who is one of our sister organizations, I believe, from Houston. With warm and grateful thanks to HRH and you, Kate. Thank you for your consecrated thought and for sharing such powerful concepts. I loved your metaphor of the shiny car, beautifully cared for, won't go anywhere without fueling up. Thank you, Dave. I'm so glad you're staying warm and you have power. Well, we know we all have the higher and divine power. It's what I've been praying for all of Texas.
And they still need our prayers.
Good. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. We ended on time. That's also punctual, one of the qualities of Christian Science nurses. I want to thank you all for supporting us, for being present to hear Kate. Thank you all. If you have any questions at all, feel free to send us an email at info@highridgehouse.org or admin@highridgehouse.org. I'll get those directly. And if please sign up again for the subsequent months coming on for our future metaphysical talks. Our gifts to you and our love from all of us at High Ridge House, and special thanks to Kate Dearborn. Let's give her a big round of applause. And thank you for all of you for tuning in. Much love,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. You were great.
Oh, thank you. Love y'all. It's so nice to see everybody's wonderful faces.
Okay, our
And-
sister facility, Brian Bettiger from White Horizon just put thank you. We can all continue to sing Mrs. Eddie's reminder, the song of Christian Science. Work, work, work. Watch and pray. Thanks, Brian. That's a good last minute words.
That is a
Thank you,
good one.
Kate. Love you. Bye.
Thank you all. Love y'all.
All right, bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Carol Jones. Much love, everyone.